Setting a goal to become a CEO is one thing. Actually becoming one is a whole nother ballgame. Today I'm speaking with someone who has spent more than 20 years shaping the health and fitness landscape in Australia. My guest, Barry McDonald, is the CEO of NovaFit, an Australian-owned distributor of world-class fitness equipment. His career includes national leadership roles across major brands such as Matrix Fitness Australia, Jets Australia, and Good Health Life Clubs. He has led multi-site operations, built high-performing teams, grown national sales divisions, and delivered major improvements in customer experience. He brings a genuine passion for people, performance, and creating fitness experiences that stand out. Barry McDonald is my next guest on the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. Let's go.
Hi folks, welcome to the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast by Gary Ryan from Organisations That Matter. In this podcast, Gary shares everything about servant leadership, service leadership, authentic leadership, how to create high performance cultures, service excellence, and life balance. Here's your host, Gary Ryan.
Welcome, Barry. Thanks for joining us on the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast.
Thanks, Gary. Good to be here.
Mate, we are going to dive straight in. When was it that you decided that you wanted to become a CEO?
Still trying to figure that one out. No, I think it's interesting. I'm not sure if I wanted to be a CEO, but I wanted to be a leader for sure. I can recall a time when I reckon I would have been 10, and I was passionate about footy. And I remember being in the backyard at a cousin's place, and it was like a winter's day, and it was freezing cold. And I'm out there. He's maybe a couple of years younger than me, and he had a mate over, and I was running drills, footy drills, and he was only a couple of years younger than me. And I was doing strategy, and I was talking about why we were doing a certain thing and why we were doing this training and what we were trying to do. And I was literally a youngster. And I still recall it now. I remember at the time thinking to myself, hey, I really enjoy this leading thing. And, for that to be, 30 odd plus years ago and still be quite vivid in my memory, I think that was the first time I really realized I wanted to be a leader, and I was good at it and I enjoyed it. So, not sure I wanted to be a CEO, but certainly wanted to lead.
So, what did you think a leader was when you were 10 then?
Yeah, I think at the time I really wanted to help people. By that stage in my life, it's being 10, I'd been in 6 or 7 different primary schools, and so grew up in housing commission and moved around quite a lot. And so my experience of leaders was very impactful on youth and on people. And so I think at the time, a leader to me was someone that could get the best out of somebody else and help them grow and develop. And I really admired those people in my life at the time, and so thought that would be a really cool thing to wear as a badge of honor and drive and grow into.
So, who would be one or two of those people over time, Barry, that even when you were younger, significantly influenced what you think about leadership?
Yeah, again, back to the sports sort of reference. I remember an under-12s coach at the time, really going out of his way to help me and wanting to be there for me, not just like from a football point of view and a skills point of view, but really as a person. And he didn't have to be. He sort of just showed up when I needed him to, and super stable, and really supportive. Would come and pick me up for training. Dad was working, 12, 14-hour days, so he didn't have a lot of time. Mum had 2 young, kids that she was looking after on top of myself. And so, yeah, that was probably my first experience of a real leader that went out of their way to do something for me that didn't have to. And the power that left on me was certainly very impactful and inspirational to go, the impact you can have on people's lives by purely leading and showing up in an authentic way was something I really wanted to do. Then as my career went on, I started to be, surrounded by leaders that I just gravitated to those people. Clearly, having the inspiration to want to be a leader, I think I searched for that. In recent times, I've probably had a couple of really opposing style leaderships in my career, and it really helped. So back in my Matrix days, I had a leader there, Michael Conlon, ex-AFL footballer, brutally fit, strong guy, and he was just a different animal. Like, he was up at 3 or 4 a.m. every single day for his entire life. He would swim in the freezing cold ocean. He'd be in the office at 7, and I'd have 25 emails and requests before I got in there at 9. And so he taught me a lot about the disciplines and the structure and the real hunger and the real drive to want to shift people. And probably on the opposite end of that, I was lucky enough to work with Elaine Jobson with Jets, and they call her the culture queen. And, Elaine has this magical ability to inspire a group of people around her to drive towards one vision. And it was a much softer, yet albeit very brutal at times, approach. And so having those two experiences within a 4-year period, 5-year period really shapes my CEO leadership, I would say. So I went from the sports kind of softer, fun, blokey bloke kind of leadership, and then gradually built into this commercial, cultural, vision inspired leadership that sort of shaped my CEO journey. And starting off the last couple of years, it really challenged that.
So, what did you have to unlearn as a result of those two experiences between Michael and Elaine?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say I unlearn them because I'm quite aware of things as they're happening. I think quite a lot. I spend a lot of time in the car. I live in regional Victoria, so there's a lot of driving and there's a lot of opportunity to muse, which I love. And so I probably didn't have to unlearn things because at the time I was saying to myself, that's not something that I would do. That's not how I would show up. And it allowed me to maybe deal with it because sometimes it was quite uncomfortable. But it also allowed me to be aware that I just don't think that would work, and that's not part of my leadership journey and not what I would do. So that's not to say. I mean, some of my team members may think differently. There may be some things that I need to unlearn, but I'd say that the awareness of those things as I was experiencing them shaped how I was showing up. And I always say to myself that you should be showing up in a leadership role one class above. And so I would always, throughout my journey, I would be in a role where I might be a sales manager, but I would want to behave and be accountable for behaviors above that office. So if I was a sales manager, I'd want to behave as what the CEO would do. And I think that lens allowed me to take on those things, knowing that eventually I would step into a role similar and I would have to behave in a certain way how I'd want to. And that gave me that flexibility and learning opportunity.
So, having been a general manager for a significant part of your career, I assume that thinking of, well, I've got to level up to the next level, whether it was planned or not, at some point that role was the CEO role.
Yeah. And I still recall being asked at that employee, do you have aspirations to want to be the CEO? And, internally I definitely wanted to, quite an ambitious person, and I identify as like a type 3 achiever in an Enneagram scale for those that are familiar with that. And so, continually looking to grow and drive. And so aspirationally, I wanted to be that CEO. But again, I think, my humble beginnings in life taught me that you got to be mindful of putting those things out there to direct reports. And there's a bit of a balance there. So yeah, I think showing up and doing, albeit the general manager job, really well, you need to be great at that and deliver on your current role. But having an attitude that, how would I show up as the CEO at the same time in that role, allowed me to demonstrate my capabilities without really putting the badge on saying, hey, I want to take this job. And inevitably, I got the opportunity. So it happened in my career maybe 4 or 5 times where I went from in that role to actually being, promoted through the ranks to a more senior leadership role.
And that clearly, it might seem on reflection like it happened by magic, but actually there was a deep intention and
Yeah.
practice around that. Now,
Yep.
equally, you haven't said, I work hard, and you haven't said, I believe in working hard. However, you've actually shared along the way already several examples about obviously that's what you do. Now, hard work in 2025 is probably a phrase that's actually got a lot of negative connotations about it in the workplace, in society even. Interestingly, I just don't meet people that get to where you are without hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you can fluke it. And I'm a great salesperson. I'll admit that, and so I can really influence and sell. It's one of my great skills that's been sort of formed along the journey. But I don't think you can sell to really intelligent business people that have given me opportunities. I think they've given me those opportunities on the back of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and probably to maybe unpack a little bit further that behaving like an office above, where if you're the sales manager or the general manager, showing up like you want to be the CEO and behaving that way, it's not just in your mannerisms and your actions, but actually in your work ethic. And um, I think spending 5 years or so with Michael, and him being an elite athlete and seeing just the tenacity and the work ethic, really showed me if I wanted to be serious in this leadership game, that's what's required. You had to give up a bit of yourself. And I think I still recall sitting down with Elaine before I took on the CEO job, and so she's a great mentor. And her feedback was, you need to be ready because it will take a chunk of you, and you need to be willing to put that in. And I certainly experienced that in the first couple of years of this role. It's transformational, but it's definitely worthwhile. But you got to be willing to pay the price.
Yeah. So what does that price look like? Like, what is it that, as much as you practice in your mind and practice from a behavioral point of view, how, but behaving as a leader and a CEO prior to even getting there, what are some of the things, one or two things that, in all honesty, you could never train, you could never really learn? People might tell you about. It's a bit like parenthood. People can tell you
Yeah.
all they like about it, but until you become one, you never really truly understand what that journey is. So, what would be one or two things about being a CEO that you just went, holy moly, like I've had to learn this the hard way, just because that's just the nature of the job.
Yeah, I think in most roles I've been able to clock it. I've been able to win the game. I've been able to get to the end of the month or the year or the period and say, yeah, okay, I clocked it. I've got this. I can juggle this. I've got it. I understand. And I don't think I've had that experience more than one day in the current CEO role. There's always something, and so I think it's that inevitability of just growth and opportunity and change and people and the volume of things that are happening that you have impact on. You're not going to, and I think the realization that you don't need to as well was a really special thing for me. Going through my whole career, it was all about clocking the game, like winning, that finite attitude of win the game, great. I'm the best sales manager in Australia. Awesome, cool. And thinking that was what was required. And so I think it's been a real beautiful shift to it. You don't need to do that, but also that's the one thing I didn't realize. It's just the sheer volume of opportunity and things that are directly impacted by yourself. You're not going to beat that, and so it's ongoing. It's an infinite game. That's probably the biggest one. I think the second one is you gotta want to lead, and I think I love the magic of leadership and what comes with that, and having some gut instinct and making some decisions that are really on you. And I think I didn't realize that I was going to love that so much. Having the be all and end all. Previously in other roles, it was, oh, I think we should be doing this. And then someone else would make that decision. And then I'm kind of like, well, it's not really a direct byproduct of me. Whereas now it's you're at the top, and the decision you make is on you. And so that leadership and love of that energy and that expectation and has been a really special one that I love. So they're probably the two things I didn't realize. I was probably maybe a little bit arrogant and naive to think that, yeah, it'll be fine. I'll just keep developing and growing, and I think, yeah, that's the really exciting part for me is you're never going to become the perfect CEO. I just think you're continually evolving, continually driving and learning, and growing, and your people around you at the same time. So, yeah, they're probably the couple of things that if someone had told me that 3 years ago, I still would have said, oh, sure, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'll write that down on a diary and I'll be okay. But it doesn't necessarily go that way.
And what about the business acumen side of things? Because you can think you're well prepared, but now you're dealing with boards, you're the owners of the business on a daily basis. Of course, they've got their expectations. Plus, you've got that leadership role with the rest of the staff in the organization. Was there anything in the business acumen side of the thing that was like a bit of a shock to the system? Certainly, maybe initially.
Yeah, I think being surrounded by really experienced people in that segment has helped. Um, I'm part of a board, and so we report monthly a board pack, and you're presenting that to the owners of the company. They've got their blood, sweat, and tears into the business, and have done that for 10 years in the NovoFit sense, and done it for 40 odd years in business. And so here comes the young sales manager that's just turned into a CEO and is making all these recommendations around business. And these people have been around a long time. So to their credit, they were quite open to that, which I thought was a great learning tool for anyone that's been in business a long time. These gentlemen are both, and so this is Adam Lewitt and Jeff Lord, owners of NovoFit, really demonstrated trust and the ability to let me go at it and see how I'd go. And I think that takes a lot of courage from their perspective. And so my business acumen was quite okay, but yeah, it opened the doors to a whole lot of other stuff that I had no idea about. Tim Horskins, our group CEO, has been fantastic in sharing some of that. So I'd say I had an understanding, but I had some really solid business people around me that were open to sharing, were open to letting go, and were open to stepping in and out when they needed to make sure we were successful. And that's really set me up very well to be comfortable in my role, but also uncomfortable at the same time, which I think is a good balance.
Yeah, and part of being uncomfortable is sometimes the decisions you have to make as a CEO. So, without probably giving anything away too much, what's been the most difficult decision you've had to make? And maybe you can only share the topic, not rather than the actual specifics.
Yeah, I think having been in the business before as a general manager and then being promoted to a CEO role, you go from being workmates to being the person that needs to inspire the vision. And so some of the harder things were around stepping up into the void of that and saying, well, we used to be here and we used to be together. We still carry that because I think that's a real important part of with your team is the whole horizontal hierarchy of business and making sure that you don't get too far ahead of yourself. But there needs to be an aspirational aspect to CEOs and leadership, I think, for their team. So it was probably the shift from being a work colleague to then being the person who needs to drive that business.
And that's a challenge that people can face right throughout their career, at multiple
Yeah,
stages of their career, obviously. So
yeah,
having some understanding and empathy of that. And Barry, one of the things when we look through your career is that you've been well known, and it's probably one of the reasons why you got the CEO role at NovaFit, is that you've been well known for really lifting teams and the performance of teams, which is actually then traced through to the results. At the end of the day, you're in a results-driven game. What might be one belief that you have that you're able to implement as a CEO about culture that maybe isn't as common as it could be?
zinger. I think a lot of people think that culture is like a soft thing, that it's a table tennis table in the common room. It's free coffees on a Friday. I think the culture that I've brought to most teams that I'm in is there's a real special vibe and there's a real special connection and it goes beyond just the 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. And I think when you can create that love of each other within a team, people will go above and beyond, particularly when the things get tough. And so, yeah, I'd say it's having, without getting too deep and sort of into it, so you got to have a love for one another and you got to have a love for the energy that you can't necessarily describe. And that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of trust. It's definitely not the soft, let's have a free Friday of coffees and things. It's tough. And you got to be consistent. You got to have uncomfortable conversations. You got to be able to be frank with one another, that radical candor and being able to work through those things, I think is where culture becomes the real winner. And you start to, the magic is when you start to see other team members drive it. I think for me, that was when I knew we had the critical mass, when I had team members that 2 years ago, I was trying to implement some of these things, and then all of a sudden, team members within departments were already doing that themselves, and driving that culture through discipline and hard work, and truthful conversations, and deep and meaningful connection, rather than just we're here to do a job. Let's just move on.
Yeah. So is it possible to have a culture of care while at the same time driving pretty big, hairy, and audacious goal results?
I think it definitely is. I think you can't have one without the other. Is the care. Anyone can say that they care. That's the easy line. But having a conversation with someone that's maybe not up to the way that they normally perform, and having a difficult conversation with them, I think that demonstrates real care. Otherwise, we just end up walking through life in this fluffy, unrealistic expectation of what it is, and you don't have truthful, meaningful conversations and connections around you without it.
Yeah. Well, when we first met, you were a playing football coach.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't that
Now,
long ago. Maybe a little too long ago, I think.
it's a while ago already,
It's
right?
crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's such a delight to have the opportunity to be working with you again, of course. And at the same time, I mean, that environment, having been in that role myself, you can learn it at a relatively young age, the importance of telling people the truth about performance because you do care about them.
Yeah, and I think sport is the real great KPI, is because there is a scoreboard, and there is performance that's quite direct. And when I met you, or we sort of did a little bit more work together, and I'd started sports coaching. I was a 24-year-old that did okay, and sort of had success, but then was going into coaching, and there was a real arrogance about me. And I still recall going to training, and you're coaching guys that have played football and senior football for 20, 30 years. And here's this young guy trying to tell me what I should be doing, and how I should be playing. And so you definitely learned very quickly that you couldn't bullshit. It was kind of straight at it. And whether you were uncomfortable or not, it didn't matter. You needed to be able to have those convos, because that's what the guys expected. So, and generally local sports, it's low resource environment. So you're doing a lot of, you're getting the drink bottles, you're cutting the oranges, and you're required to do a lot. And I think that definitely was a really good foundation for my leadership growth. The arrogance was sort of banged out of me pretty quickly from some of the older guys that pulled me back a few pegs. And it definitely taught me that, yeah, you got to be straight at it, and within reason, and applying care first, but respectfully managing and communicating with people of different walks of life was very powerful.
A simple way to describe arrogance, and it doesn't mean that it's right because I describe it this way, is it's belief in yourself without listening versus you can have belief in yourself and listen.
Yeah, so maybe I was a listener. I'd say that maybe it was external arrogance, because you wanted to be the one that knew what was going on. Because if I didn't, I'm not sure they'd listen to me. And so there's a balance there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't show up. I mean, imagine the CEO showing up and saying, "Oh, I'm not sure if I can do this job."
Yeah,
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 you might have that with your own counsel. You might have that conversation privately and in your own counsel with your own coaches yourself. But to announce that to the world, you're just going to shoot the confidence of the people in you. There is you have to have a level of self-belief in
yeah.
to be able to perform in anything. And I mean, one of the challenges we all have is no matter what level of self-belief is just we still have the moments of that little voice in your head that's asked the question, can I really do this?
Yeah, and I think that the imposter syndrome is probably something I haven't suffered. Um, and I think that might be through resilience, and through having adversity throughout life, and getting through that and being okay. Um, and so flexibility and awareness of those kind of feelings and that emotion, I think, helps. But yeah, there's no more brutal playing field than a sports field, no matter what sport it is. And when you're coaching, particularly, and playing at the same time, um, it keeps you pretty honest.
Oh, that's right. And I mean, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned about trusting your gut and your intuition about decision making. Now, there's nothing like a dynamic football field in the Yarra Valley when you're deep into the third quarter and you're behind and you're kicking against the wind in the last quarter and you got to win this game and you got to make some decisions and you make them and it works and it's like, holy crap, I can do that. And that's in a real living, again, dynamic environment, which is the world of business too.
Yeah, it's sort of, I think at the time when I took on the role, I was a youngster and heading out to the country and probably didn't do it for my leadership growth. It was more, excitement and something new. And I think that's one thing. I've always had an enthusiasm for new things. Very rarely would I say no to something. Adventure is one of my true core values. And so when it popped up, it was kind of like, yeah, I'll just have a go at it. It makes sense. And I had a crack. And little did I know that environment would really shape my authentic leadership and the way that I showed up throughout my 30s. And it taught me a hell of a lot more than I taught it in terms of the football club and the team. And so super grateful for that opportunity for sure.
Oh, absolutely. If you combine your value about adventure with also that strategy of always looking at the next role above and how can I I mean, you never said I want to take that role, but I want to be like that. I want to already be that role, even though I'm doing this role. I want to I want to perform to that level, right? When you
Yeah.
combine those two things, magic happens, opportunities come.
Yeah. Well, it's evidence too, I think, in most of the roles that I've had, any employee over the last 20 years, I've started in a role and then ended up in a leadership role in that same business. And so it's definitely served me well. Is it uncomfortable at times? 100%. The first 12 months of the CEO role, I'm not sure I've ever been that uncomfortable in my life, but I loved it. And I loved that feeling. And because I knew if it was funny, it was almost like the gym or footy. It would be like if I trained super hard that day, which was worked hard in the office, worked hard on relationships, teams, went to bed that night, woke up the next morning, I'd go again. And so I really compartmentalized it and just built it out that way. And so it was almost a 12-month period of just working my backside off, get to sleep, wake up, do it again. And I just compartmentalized it that way. And then you had wins along the way. And then all of a sudden, to your analogy about the third quarter in the muddy ground of the Yarra Valley, you make a decision, it works. And then all of a sudden the momentum keeps building. So, yeah, the incremental shift throughout the period of time has definitely um, helped with the success of the business. And we've had a great couple of years. I've been really lucky. My first 2 years has certainly been a rapid growth period, some significant change on the back of some of the team's great work. So they've got great people around me that make that a lot easier. I think the next step is probably the uncharted territory for me is where to next. How do you keep that momentum going? The first 2 years is always the honeymoon period where you've made change, you've seen significant shift, and everybody's happy and successful, and there's a great vibe. It's kind of like what the next steps are. Part of that journey is a little bit uncharted for me, which again, my sense of adventure and a willingness to sacrifice is probably going to combine with a great end result. So I might as well just cruise. I'll be okay.
Well, we do love numbers on this show. So if you're happy to share your growth numbers and which has been extraordinary in the past 2 years, the audiences love to hear it because obviously that trajectory is going to bring its own sets of challenges.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So I was in the business for 2 years in sales, and then have been in a couple of years in the CEO role. So since I came into the business, we've doubled our revenue, and so that comes with a hell of a lot of challenges when you double revenue and you're still within the same um, roof and walls, and you're still building that. When I took over the CEO role, we tripled profit. So in 2 years, we've been able to do that as a team, and we've been able to sustain that as well. It's not a flash in the pan. It looks like that growth is going to continue. Not that we'll double profit again. Hopefully, the owners don't listen to this podcast because that'll be the new target. So yeah, tripling profit in 2 years is something I'm super proud of, and it's not just purely through um, sales wins. It's kind of a combination of what I was great at, the sales and the marketing and the inspirational drive of the market, but also efficiencies and warehousing and costs and probably the more boring stuff. That's a huge impact that I've become really good at. So um, yeah, doubling revenue in a 4-year period is probably something any business would be thrilled with, but also understand the challenges. And just in the last 2 years to increase profit by that much, the team are doing an amazing job. And yeah, we're continuing looking at bringing in good people and building that excitement around our people has been a real badge for me that wealth is being shared across the people that are already in the business. And so that's been probably an unintended real success story that I've loved as the CEO. Is you can see the wealth around you for people that are growing and being recognized because of their performance, which is a
Yeah,
buzz.
earning more money because of the promotions and the opportunities and stepping into new roles. And, that's what happens when there's more money around. I mean, people might, money is not bad. Money is a good
Yeah.
thing. And it can do a lot of very good things for people in businesses. We're in the age of AI. You're in a very physical based business with the physical products and services that you provide. What does AI mean for you and NovaFit and the fitness industry, Barry?
I think for us and NovoFit, it's about extending the offering and extending what we currently do. It certainly, I can't see it replacing too many things, which is probably naive of me. But I think it probably extends the offering and the level of, particularly around service, I think is a huge one for us that we've been exploring. There's customer agents out there that can take an inbound call and diagnose a problem on a treadmill, and then suggest what that problem would require to be repaired, transcript that, share it with our case managers, and then the job can be completed. And so it removes a lot of downtime. So I think it'll assist us in speed to repair and speed to serve customers. I think for a fitness industry, you know, it'll probably remove the well, not remove necessarily, but really sort of challenge the PT model. I think a lot of people are now, using Chat GPT and the like to get a workout program. So personal trainers need to evolve and think about their personalization touch rather than it just being about writing programs. It's more about supporting the person and the emotions around fitness and what you're trying to achieve. We're lucky enough to work with some really fast moving technology companies in this space. And so in Europe, it's already something that's quite a dominant feature in the fitness industry, and that's coming to Australia. Things like an automated induction for a member. It'll then take all of that information, shoot it up through the AI into a data cloud that runs billions of data sets and then comes back and suggests a workout dependent on all of those things and all of those data sets. And so I think AI will again complement the offering, the human nature of what we do, the feeling. It's an intrinsic thing predominantly, as much as everyone thinks it's aesthetics, they want to look good. It's definitely an internal game that the fitness industry works on with people. So I think AI will be an extension of what the offering is rather than a replacement. And we do the nuts and bolts. We're doing treadmills and strength training and ellipticals and machines. That's a non-human, and that does extend the offering. So we're sort of already doing it. I think it'll just be an evolution of that and an extension.
Oh, yeah. As the equipment continues to evolve to be AI enabled, as people's workout wear is AI enabled and wearable is not just what you got on your wrist, but or around your chest, it's actually in your clothes. I mean, that's all coming. There's going to be AI enabled fitness based clothing.
Yeah, we just got back from a trip to America and had a drive in a Waymo. Not sure if you've seen those, but it's a driverless car. And the States are definitely ahead of the Aussies, I think, in terms of tech. And I probably thought it was around the other way before this trip, but heading out there, it is everywhere. And to be sitting in a car without a driver for an hour and a half, the first 5 minutes was kind of weird and a bit scary and a bit novel. And then 30 minutes in, it was normal. It was like that's the standard now. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely on the tip of everybody's tongue. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch for sure.
Oh, 100%. And I'd like to wrap up our conversation with one final question, and that is, what does moving beyond being good mean to you, Barry?
I think it's a lifelong prospect, right? I think what I've learned in the last 2 years is that you're not going to reach the top of the ladder because you're continually pushing for the next rung. So, moving beyond being good means constantly looking at ways to better yourself, constantly looking at ways to better others, and really making that a life's purpose is a just cause that I really love doing. So I'll continue to do it for as long as I can and provide impact to others. And I certainly know you've done that with myself and others within my team. So continually to push that, I think, is the betterment for all humankind, which is a pretty deep philosophical finish, but it's a big responsibility and a great opportunity.
That's 100% what we're all about, Barry. I really appreciate your time and joining us here today.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate you having me on.
No worries. Now, folks, if you really enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe to the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. Feel free to send me a message about who you would like me to have as a guest. Maybe you can introduce me to someone that you believe should be on the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. Once again, I'm Gary Ryan, the host of the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. We've had Barry McDonald here with us today, the CEO of NovaFit. Thanks for coming along. We look forward to you joining us next episode. Let's go.